My name is Miles, and this is the story of how I got disowned over dinner, and why, somehow, it saved me. It was a gray Thanksgiving afternoon. I was early, as always. 6 hours of silence on the road gave me time to replay everything: the calls, the missed birthdays, the loans, the love I gave without hesitation. And still, I wasn't ready for what would happen next. 2 weeks earlier, a text popped up from my sister, Eve. "Hey. Family's doing dinner like usual. You coming?" It wasn't warm. It wasn't cold. Just neutral, like she was afraid to ask, or maybe told to. I stared at it. Typed, "Sure. I'll be there." Not because I wanted to, but because I still believed I had a place. Somewhere at that table. Beside the people I spent a lifetime giving pieces of myself to. I pulled up to the old house. The porch still creaked like it used to. The chimes swayed in the breeze like nothing had changed. But everything had. As I reached the steps, my older brother Seth stepped out. He stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "You're not family anymore. Leave." Behind him, through the window, I saw Mom. She was laughing, handing my seat to my sister's boyfriend. That's when I knew. I didn't argue. Didn't cry. I just nodded, turned around, walked back to my car, and sat there. Then I opened my phone and hit send. The message I'd been saving for months. I didn't blow up. Didn't curse. Didn't make a scene. I just wrote the truth. Every dollar I lent. Every debt I covered. Every second chance I gave. I told them they could keep their seat. Keep their cold smiles and quiet judgments. But they wouldn't keep me. Not anymore. I typed, "Sure. I'll be there." Not because I wanted to, but because I still believed I had a place. Somewhere at that table. Somewhere beside the people I spent a lifetime giving pieces of myself to. I pulled up to the old house. The porch still creaked like it used to. The chimes swayed in the breeze like nothing had changed. But everything had. As I reached the steps, Seth, my older brother, stepped out. Stood in the doorway. Arms crossed like a sentry. "You're not family anymore. Leave." Behind him, through the window, I saw Mom. Laughing. And handing my seat to my sister's boyfriend. That's when I knew. I nodded. I didn't argue. Didn't cry. Just turned, walked back to my car, and sat there in silence. Then. I opened my phone and hit send. The message I'd been saving for months. I didn't blow up. I didn't curse. I didn't make a scene. I just wrote the truth. Every dollar I lent. Every debt I covered. Every second chance I gave. I told them they could keep their seat. Keep their cold smiles and quiet judgments. But they wouldn't keep me. Not anymore. 5 minutes later, one by one, phones buzzed. Raina stood up. Julia left without saying a word. Eve. She cried. Couldn't even look up. Half the table, gone. I drove for hours that night. No music. Just the sound of tires against the highway and the hum of everything I'd left behind. My phone buzzed. Missed calls. Texts. Apologies. Excuses. Even threats. Mom sent me a voice memo, said I ruined Thanksgiving. But it had already been ruined, long before I ever arrived. Raina messaged too. Said she stood up because she remembered the time I paid her rent for 3 months, and never told a soul. Julia said she left because watching them laugh at me felt like betrayal. I didn't reply. Not yet. I just let the silence answer for me. The next morning, I woke up in a cheap motel room 2 towns away. The air smelled like dust and detergent. The kind of place you go to disappear. I opened the curtains and watched the pale light spill across the bed. And suddenly, I remembered. Mom's hands, braiding Eve's hair while I cleaned the dishes. Dad's voice, yelling when I came home late from my second job. Seth, laughing as he took credit for the project I built from scratch. Memory after memory surfaced, not as comfort but as confirmation. That I had always been the outsider. Useful, but never truly seen. And still, part of me grieved. Not for them, but for the version of me that kept waiting to be chosen. That version finally died in that motel room. But something else was born. A version that didn't need their approval. A version ready to start over, alone, maybe, but whole. In the days that followed, I kept expecting the grief to come crashing down. Like a wave. Like regret. but it didn't. It was quieter than that. Like losing weight you didn't know you were carrying. I scrolled through old photos. Birthdays, barbecues, blurry group shots where I always stood at the edge. Never in the middle. Never the one held. They took holidays. Traditions. Inside jokes. They took the idea of what home was supposed to feel like. But what they couldn't take was me. The part of me that kept showing up. That kept forgiving. That kept believing. That part wasn't weakness. It was strength misused. Now, it was mine again. I didn't need to be let back in. I was building something new. From the ashes of their silence. A week later, I found myself at a park I used to visit as a kid. The kind of place where time slows down. Trees towering like sentinels, and a stillness that made everything inside me louder. I sat on a bench with a coffee I didn't finish. Watching the wind tease the leaves into dancing. A little boy ran past me, laughing. His dad chased after him, calling his name. And for some reason, that moment broke me. Not from sadness. But from clarity. I had been chasing the wrong people, the wrong kind of love, my whole life. I was always the one reaching, never the one reached for. But not anymore. Because the truth is, I didn't lose a family. I lost a cage. And in its place, I found freedom. I started writing letters. Not to mail. Just to say what I never could. To Mom, you taught me silence louder than words. I still hear it every time I think about calling you. To Seth, I wasn't your rival. I was your brother. But you treated me like a threat, because I never needed to lie to be seen. To Eve, you cried when I left. I saw that. And part of me still hopes you meant it. Some letters were full of rage. Others, grief. But the hardest ones. They were the ones to myself. To the version of me that tried so hard to earn love through sacrifice. The one who believed that being useful was the same as being wanted. I told him, I'm sorry. I'm sorry no one saw how much you carried. I'm sorry I waited so long to choose you. And then, I thanked him. For surviving. For hoping. For never letting the pain turn into poison. I burned the letters after. Not to forget, but to forgive. To release. Because sometimes, healing means letting the words rise in smoke, so you can finally breathe again. It had been 2 weeks since Thanksgiving. No calls. No texts. Just the kind of silence that says everything. And that was fine. I'd said what needed saying. And more importantly, I'd finally heard myself. Still, a part of me checked my phone every morning. Not out of hope, but out of habit. That was the hardest part to break, the reflex to care when they didn't. Then one afternoon, my sister Eve messaged. Can we talk? Just that. No punctuation. No explanation. But I knew. I met her at a cafe halfway between her place and mine. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, just dimmer. Like the light in her had been flickering too. We sat down. She didn't order anything. Just stared at her hands. And then she whispered, "You were right." I didn't know what to say. Not because I didn't believe her, but because part of me had stopped needing her to say it. She went on. Told me how uncomfortable things had gotten since I left. How Dad refused to speak about me. How Mom said I was going through a phase. How Seth acted like nothing had happened. But the table felt colder without me. They used you, she said. And now that you're gone, the cracks are everywhere. She was crying by then. And I believed her. Because I remembered what it felt like to realize the people you love are more loyal to their comfort than to the truth. She said she wanted to change things. To start over. To rebuild what we had, even if the rest of the family stayed broken. I didn't promise anything. But I listened. And when we stood up to leave, I hugged her. Not out of obligation. Out of choice. Because healing isn't about who comes back. It's about who shows up, and means it. After meeting with Eve, I didn't rush to tell anyone. Not that there was anyone left to tell. But I sat with it. Let the moment be what it was, not proof that everything could be fixed, but proof that something had shifted. And then, a week later, I got a letter. Not an email. Not a text. An actual letter, in my father's handwriting. My hands shook holding it. I stared at it for hours before opening it. Inside were 5 sentences. 5 cold, deliberate lines. Oliver, your behavior was disrespectful and hurtful to this family. You were out of line. If you want to be welcomed back, an apology will be expected. Until then, consider your invitation rescinded for all future gatherings. Dad. That was it. Not a word about what they did. Not a single acknowledgement of their part. Just a demand, and a door slammed shut in neat penmanship. I read it again. Not because I didn't understand it, but because I did. It wasn't about love. It was about control. Their version of love always had strings. And the second I cut them, they called it betrayal. But I didn't cry. I didn't even get angry. I folded the letter. Put it in a drawer. And poured myself a glass of wine. Because the thing about closure is this: sometimes, it doesn't come in the form of a warm reunion or a dramatic apology. Sometimes, it's a letter that proves you were right to leave. And that night, for the first time in years, I slept without dreaming about who I used to be. December came fast. The holidays always do when you're dreading them. The whole world wrapped itself in lights and songs, but I felt like I was living just outside the snow globe, watching everyone else pretend it was all okay. But there was no pretending anymore. I didn't buy a single gift for my parents. I didn't decorate. I didn't show up. Instead, I made a different plan. I cooked dinner for myself. Just me, a roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, and the kind of quiet that didn't hurt. It was strange at first, the absence. But as the hours passed, that emptiness started to feel more like space. And in that space, I could hear myself think. I could hear myself breathe. Halfway through dinner, Eve called. Her voice was soft. "I'm at Mom and Dad's," she said. "It's awful. Tense. Seth's quiet. No one's talking. And they set a plate for you." I nearly dropped my fork. They what? A full place setting. Like they expected you to come. But no one said your name. Not once. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so perfectly them. Appearances over accountability. A performance instead of an apology. We talked for an hour. About everything and nothing. And when we hung up, I looked at the empty seat across from me. And I smiled. Because for once, I wasn't missing from the table. They were missing from mine. A few days after New Year's, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. No return address. But I recognized the handwriting immediately. It was from Mom. She hadn't written to me in years, not even when I moved cross-country, not when I graduated, not even after the fallout at Thanksgiving. My hands trembled as I opened it. Not from fear. But from something deeper. That quiet part of me still hoping for acknowledgement. The letter began simply. "Miles, I don't know what to say." That was the first honest sentence she'd given me in a long time. She didn't say sorry. Not exactly. She said she wished things were different. Said she didn't know how to fix it. She said Seth was angry, and Dad was silent, and Eve was making things harder by picking sides. Picking sides. As if truth had sides. As if love was a competition and not a choice. I folded the letter gently and set it aside. I didn't rip it. Didn't frame it. Just placed it in a drawer with other things I didn't know what to do with. But I didn't cry. Because for the first time, her words didn't define me. They were hers to carry now. And mine to release. That night, I journaled for hours. Not about them, but about me. The me I was becoming. The me I had always been, beneath the people-pleasing and the proving. And the me I was finally learning to protect. Winter melted into spring, and with it, the weight I'd carried for years started to thaw. I wasn't healed, not fully. But I was healing. Day by day, choice by choice, I was rebuilding something they couldn't touch. My peace. I started saying no more. No to late-night calls that drained me. No to money requests masked as, just one last time. No to guilt disguised as love. And every no made room for a quieter yes. Yes to long walks without needing a destination. Yes to dinners with friends who saw me, really saw me. Yes to weekends where I didn't have to recover from being around people who made me feel small. Eve kept reaching out. Sometimes just a meme, sometimes a memory. But every time, it felt like an olive branch, not from our family, but from someone else who had survived it too. We met up once, in a cafe halfway between our cities. She looked tired. Older. But lighter, too. We didn't talk about Thanksgiving. We didn't have to. Instead, we talked about who we were becoming. She had started therapy. Said it helped her see just how much pretending she'd done to survive. I nodded, sipping my coffee. I understood that all too well. At the end of our visit, she hugged me, really hugged me. And whispered, "I'm proud of you." No one in our family had ever said that to me before. And for once, I believed it. Because I was proud of me too. That summer, I changed my number. Not out of anger, but peace. A quiet goodbye to the people who only called when they needed something. A soft boundary where a wall used to be. It wasn't a grand announcement. Just silence. And it was the kindest thing I'd ever done for myself. I deleted the family group chat. Blocked Seth. Archived years of voicemails I never had the heart to listen to. Not because I wanted to erase my past. But because I no longer needed it to validate my pain. I wasn't stuck in the cycle anymore, needing to prove my worth to people who had already decided not to see it. I was free. There were days I missed them. Not them, really. But the version of me that believed I had a family who would never turn on me. That innocent version, the one who still brought gifts every Christmas, who forgave without apology, who stayed silent so others could feel comfortable. I mourned him too. He deserved more than what he got. And in a strange way, letting go of them meant holding on to him, finally giving him the love and loyalty he gave everyone else. One morning, I stood in the mirror and whispered, "I believe you." To every past version of myself who doubted, who questioned, who cried behind closed doors after being told to stop being so sensitive. I believed him now. And I wouldn't let anyone silence him again. 1 year later, Thanksgiving came again. There was no invitation. No half-hearted text. No guilt-laced call from Mom asking if I was still upset. And for the first time in my life, that silence felt like a blessing. I cooked dinner for myself. Just me. No chaos. No pretending. Roasted vegetables. A small turkey breast. Mashed potatoes made exactly the way I like them, extra garlic, no judgment. I set the table for one. Lit a candle. Put on soft music. And I ate in peace. Not in loneliness. In peace. Because that day wasn't about what I had lost anymore. It was about what I had finally found. Me. The version of me that didn't shrink to fit. The one who didn't beg for a seat at a table where I was only ever tolerated. The one who had learned that blood isn't always family, and silence can be more loving than words spoken with cruelty. Halfway through dessert, I got a message from Eve. Just a picture, her and her kids at the park. A caption underneath, "Wish you were here. They miss Uncle Miles." I smiled. Because maybe, just maybe, not all bridges burn forever. Some just take time to rebuild, slowly, safely, on new terms. And this time, I wouldn't cross one unless I built it, brick by brick, with love and truth and boundaries. Because I wasn't who I used to be. And I wasn't going back. A few weeks after Thanksgiving, I got a letter. Handwritten. No return address. Just my name, in shaky cursive. I opened it slowly, expecting venom or guilt. But instead, it was from my Aunt Carol, the quiet one. The one who never spoke much at gatherings but always made sure I had enough on my plate. Inside, just a single page. Miles. I saw what they did last year. I should have said something. I didn't. I'm sorry. I'm proud of you. Love. Carol. I held the letter to my chest and just sat there. Not because it fixed anything, but because it reminded me I wasn't crazy. I wasn't alone. Someone had noticed. Someone had cared, even if too quietly at the time. And sometimes, a whisper of truth is enough to carry you through years of silence. I framed the letter. Not for revenge. Not to prove anything. But to remember that even in the darkest moments, there were flickers of light. And I had learned how to become my own flame. Since then, life has been slower. Softer. No more panic texts. No more covering loans or flying across states to fix things I didn't break. Just quiet mornings. Long walks. Friends who don't need explanations. Peace that doesn't beg for permission. And me, no longer the family scapegoat. No longer the emotional punching bag. No longer the invisible son. Just Miles. Enough, just as I am. I used to think healing would feel loud. Triumphant. Like some grand moment where everything clicked and I finally got the apology I deserved. But healing wasn't an explosion. It was a whisper. A quiet decision I made every morning to not go back. Not to the house. Not to the pain. Not to the person I became when I was trying to be loved by people who only knew how to need me. I stopped trying to explain myself. Stopped rehearsing arguments in the shower. Stopped waiting for them to say, "I'm sorry," and mean it. Because maybe they never will. And maybe that's okay. They didn't change, but I did. I learned that family isn't just blood. It's who shows up, who listens, who sees you when you're not useful. And more than anything, I learned this. I am not too much. I am not too sensitive. I am not selfish for walking away from people who treat my love like currency. I am allowed to protect my peace. I am allowed to start over. I am allowed to build a life where I am safe, even if it's smaller, even if it's quieter. Today, I still have the message I sent at Thanksgiving. Still tucked in my phone like a scar that healed clean. Not because I hold on to bitterness, but because I want to remember what freedom cost. And I'd pay it again. Because my name is Miles. And I finally came home, to myself.